It was a death by 1,000 cuts. Old Fitzroy, struggling for so long, finally rolled over and died in 1996. Although the official story is that the Lions had simply headed north. Officially, the club has merged with Brisbane, so that a new side, the Brisbane Lions, will take the field in 1997. Fitzroy captain Brad Boyd has signed to head north and will be joined by at least 7 of his former teammates. The new side starts with mountains of money and an imposing player list. The future looks rosy, but the road has been hard. Led by new coach Michael Noonan, the Lions were playing with a new game plan and a sense of purpose as they approached the Ansett Cup. While Noonan rued that his team's skill level was too low to carry out the game plan, there were signs that at last Fitzroy had on-field objectives. But the first few rounds of the season, Fitzroy was beaten but not disgraced. It was clear they had unearthed some good recruits, particularly Scott Bamford, Matthew Primus in the ruck and Nick Carter, while Brad Boyd and Chris Johnston were among the established hands playing well.
Oh, look at the mark by Johnson!
But as losses mounted, confidence slipped away. In round 4, the Roys were hammered by the Saints and the floodgates opened, heavy losses following from Brisbane, Richmond and Carlton. But then came a victory, and there was no mistake about it, with Anthony Mellington providing a target with 6 goals at full forward. And the beleaguered Lions fans lapped up every second. The Roys pounded Fremantle at the Western Oval in round 8, the team's first win in 364 days.
They have spilled out onto this ground in a show of emotion that has certainly been building up for 12 months.
But the taste of success was fleeting. The following weekend saw North Melbourne defeat the Lions by 105 points, and they were off the pace for the rest of the season. Their only glimmer of an upset victory came against the West Coast Eagles in round 15. The Lions were competitive up until the last quarter, when an astonishing piece of umpiring in front of goals saw Jared Malloy penalised for punching the ball away after a Peter Sumich point. West Coast was handed another shot in the goal square and the game was over.
That's not very good.
That moment symbolised everything about Fitzroy's luck, or lack of it, on and off the field. Noonan became so desperate, he tried to lift his players by threatening fines for on-field non-performances. Off the ground, the vultures were circling, as they had since February. When the league asked Fitzroy to prove its solvency to trade, the pressure never let up. By the time the club held its annual general meeting, the Australian Securities Commission and the Australian Taxation Office were lurking. Creditors were mumbling, players' payments were in doubt. President Dyson Hall-Lacey admitted to a loss of $250,000 for 1995. It was a fiery, angry meeting, which ended with mergers clearly not out of the question. It turned out the Lion officials were already talking to North Melbourne, but the process was too slow. As the two clubs debated naming rights and Guernsey designs, they had no idea things were about to get really ugly. The Pacific island of Nauru, which had saved the Lions with a financial injection the year before, sent Administrator Michael Brennan in pursuit of its money. Overnight, Fitzroy was on the brink of collapse. The AFL Commission met until long into the night before deciding to give the club the rest of the week to confirm its merger with North. Michael Noonan and the players met with Brennan to hear the likelihood of their being paid. North wondered if there was a Fitzroy to merge with. It came to a head on Thursday, July 4, when the other clubs decided not to give North Melbourne the hefty player concessions it wanted if it was to merge with the Lions. North declared the merger was off. Out of nowhere, Brisbane, a long-time suitor for Fitzroy's hand, came from nowhere, offering to agree to the other club's conditions. The deal was done. Before North Melbourne officials could blink, the Brisbane Lions had been born. Naturally, none of this was helping the players concentrate out on the field. Fitzroy was walloped by every team. Players now just trying to impress the Brisbane recruiting staff. Noonan resigned, saying he was no longer coaching Fitzroy. And in ugly scenes, a game against Brisbane at the Whitten Oval in round 20 saw angry Lions fans take it out on their players. A week later, when the Roys played Richmond in their last game ever in Melbourne, the emotion was overwhelming. The Lions had a cavalcade of past champions, and there wasn't a dry eye in the house. Apart from among the ruthless Tigers who blitzed the Roys by a record 151-point margin. In round 22, Fitzroy lost to Fremantle in Perth, and the Dockers played Auld Lang Syne.
For the days of old lang syne.
It was the end, or a new beginning, depending on your point of view.
Suffering an intolerable situation there, Fitzroy. A number of their top players now going to Brisbane, and the Lions living on as a name with the Brisbane Lions next year. We're going to look at some of the very best finishes right after this break in the season that was 1996.
Monday's Express.